Morning. We've been learning how the flood waters, learning about Noah's Ark, that the waters covered the entire earth, representing how there could be something that's obvious and real and that's completely impossible to behold, to experience, to see. Every person has a soul. Every Jew has a godly soul that inherent to it, its nature, just like fire's nature is to rise. The nature of a Jewish soul is to love Hashem and to not be extinguished by all the floodwaters that we encounter, to rise above, because that's the inherent true identity of a Jew, is to not be distracted by the seduction of the world, but use that world that Hashem created for a purpose and make that flood into something that is immersive and real. So that's my summary of yesterday. And those waters are called Mei Neach, the waters of Noah, because he's Neicha Derucha. Neach means Neicha, which means relaxing, pleasant. Shu bechinas shvisa, like a person resting. Ke'adam hasheves melakte, after his shift is done. So there is something about being immersed in more than just the trappings of the mundane world, but finding something immersive within that is holy, and that is a tranquility, that is a neach, that is Noah's Ark. The Kamesh Kosavi, the Yeshav to V'yim, V'yishleis V'yim Hashvi, Hashem rested on the seventh day, V'targumai, V'nach V'yim Shvi'ah. They translate the word Shabbos as nach or neach, same letters. It's a rest that the water of the flood waters of Noah represent. The opportunity to float above all the flood, or to be very happy to swim around it. And since it says Neach twice, that refers to two types of rest, or something more purposeful. Well, no, rest is purposeful, or more an end unto itself, like satisfaction. Well, now it tells me I can see who's viewing me if I press a certain button. It's good to know. There is a certain satisfaction that exists on a higher level, and it exists on a lower level. If the two are conjoined and the floodwaters become kamayim liyam nachasim, we'll have da'as, an experience of Hashem throughout the whole thing. It's immersive, divine, and boundless, unobstructed rest. And in the future, the Alter Rebbe continues, Shenikra Yom Shekula Shabbos is called a total sabbatical. Masha'en Kem Shabbos Tata. So prior to that, you have a lower sabbatical that's more like try and keep your employer off you for a day. Eina Kula Shabbos. Our Shabbos is not, I don't mean our, I mean when the Alter Rebbe wrote this. That was considered not the total permanent sabbatical that awaits. Yom Shekula Shabbos, a day that's entirely a sabbatical, a Sabbath. Masha'en Kem Shabbos Tata, She'ena Yachol Shabbos Kasher Yispar. There's not the ability before the redemptive moment that it happens to you, hopefully before the final days. Why not? That's what our forefathers did. So what is this very elusive notion of a flood? Because if they did come just to smite the bad guys, why would it need so much drama? Hashem could have just pressed a different button in the matrix and zapped them out of the program. Without a flood. Why is Hashem being so poetic? So the reason why Hashem used water to immerse the world that had gone awry is to purify it like water cleanses. As it says that vengeance filled the land. They were very accursed. Therefore, that creation had been sullied, and it needed to be bathed in purity. That's why Hashem specifically used a flood to annihilate them, and not like some microscopic disease. Shehu bechinas mayim. The reason it had to be water, bechinas lataharas hatmeim, to purify the sullied. Shehu kedugmas hamikvah, and that's why it reflected the way the flood operated. It reflected the way the laws of ritual purity and mikvah dunking is. It had, which requires a certain measure to be considered kosher, 40 units. And so too, the rain of the flood purifies the world of 40 days of rain. And it came to purify the earth, as we see in Ezekiel, it says, I have spritzed upon you cleansing waters, and purified you. That's why it's called the waters of Noah, because this created a pleasant high on high. It was a rest. Noah brought this rest to the world by being able to rise above the waters and see it as a cleansing experience. And our preoccupation with mundane affairs and specifically trying to survive by making a living, that's called also the waters of Noach. So what's so relaxing about that, Noach? The K'mayim Razal, Avram Avinu Shibud Neged Gehinnom. As our sages teach, that Avram was given a choice to cleanse his children, his descendants immersed in a impure land. Which is better? It doesn't have to be very long, it could just happen, or it doesn't have to happen at all. Or do they have to go down under? Right? Just like the soul cannot experience the bliss in paradise until it's dunked. So this cleansing process teaches us that you go a step higher when you achieve purity. It says about the heretic Acher that it's better that he should be judged. What did he get, 180 years down under? Or it's better to go through that, or 120, I can't remember, in order to come to the world, to come because it's that good. Welcome. It's that good, so it's painful and torturous Acher, but it's worth it to bring out the good that you brought to the world also. V'gam litbel dinar dinur, and also to immerse into the river of fire that takes you into a higher spiritual level. So too, by being in the world and being subjected to the foreign nation's rule is a suffering. It's not spiritual, it's a physical body going through that. That too can take you extremely high places. L'madrega hayeser gavaya, to the highest of all levels, the Alter Rebbe writes. V'hine shibud eina perish mashi yesh aleinu ata melech v'shineitel mitani mas. And the type of persecution here, we're not talking about a tax that you don't want to pay from the local authority. Shigam izman beis hamikdash haya aleinu melech Yisrael. Because Jewish kings also tax. It's not about freedom from constraints like that. V'hamas haya v'yoser. The Jewish king is taxed hard. Ki yidua shechelek Assyria. It's rocking. You know what's considered hard back then? A tenth. So I have no idea. I don't understand that at all. That was considered horrible, 10%. You give a tenth to the king and you're good to go. All your roads are provided. What do we pay? 40, 50%? Ela hakavanahi shebizman beis hamikdash haya kayam. But the way to understand this is that in the times of the Holy Temple, you could handle 10% taxes because there was so much. When you had a Holy Temple, things worked and they had tons of wealth. They could not receive gifts anymore for the Holy Temple, and they had enough gold to you get the point. Eretz Yisrael Haisa Eretz Zavas Chalav V'Shvash was flowing with milk and honey. Shalei al pi hateva klal, completely miraculously. Nothing to do with the elbow grease that you put in. They sat back and were satisfied with all of the plenty they had, and that was not their main concern anymore. True, they had problems with idolatry because they were into worship. They had everything they needed. They were very comfortable. Now, what do you worship out of that? Is it ourselves, Chas v'Shalom, or is it something a little bit more with a capital I? Ve'ata yesh l'kol echad v'echad yigiyes v'tiras v'panasa le'esek v'nyanim hazeh gashmi. And now everyone is drawn to simply survive in this physical, harsh world. I'm adding a bit of color of my own because it doesn't say harsh here. But just the fact that they're physically mundane is more the Alter Rebbe's angle. V'hu bechinas mayim rabim hanal, and that is those great floodwaters that could take us so far away from the idea of devoting ourselves to da'as as Hashem, to experience divinity in all of that. Shenik kramei neach, that's the waters of Noah. Shu bechinas naicha derucha, it's this spiritual bliss, the promise of rest, of satisfaction. Okay, I gotta remember to use that as a title. Because this floodwater that we were flung into took us so deep in our soul. We drew on such depths of our spiritual character that we all possess, that it brings us higher. To higher than it was before it came into that life. Because before you became a physical you just basked in the Shekhinah. That was your job. Sages teach. It's more beautiful one moment in returning to Hashem in this world, doing good things, from all of what you get out of it. It's more precious to do that here. Because your brilliant light comes out of this massive darkness. Hashem save us. And this is the idea of not submitting to our temptation and transforming that darkness into light. That the entire day is so mundane and has nothing to do with the inherent need of the soul, which is to daven really good. That's the darkness, is being drawn away from this light, this brilliant infinity that we can have. An infinity in your pocket. In prayer. Recognizing that every single blade of grass that grows on your field is dependent on a spiritual force to awaken it to actually do its thing. So you are connected spiritually with the success of your farm, or whatever digital equivalent today. There's no fortune in the world that doesn't have a spiritual source. As the verse says, Megid Fuas Shemesh Megid Yigerish. And all those forces have a source in 70 ministering angels, Visarim, corresponding to the Gentile nations of the world, these sort of organic forces in the world. And there's different levels of angels. Archangel was a pun on the word ark. You need an angel over your ark to float above it all. The difference is it's not just going to be the archangel, it will be Hashem himself taking us by the hand, each in our way that we need to be held. It says like a mother consoles her child or comforts her child. That's the way every Jew is promised to be redeemed. So it's something that's very practical too. Okay, I might have to stop there, sort of in the middle. I really don't have time at the moment to give these shul. I'm just squishing them in, going off for a little walk to shul, great shul. The Edinburgh shul is probably the only community I've ever been in before. I've been in yeshivas mostly, kollels and things like that. And 770 is you don't get a sense of the community, especially like it's massive, the space there. This one is more like a snowpiercer. It's just one line. There's nowhere to hide in this shul. Have a great day.